My name is Brandon Warne, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Sabermetrics Network. Today I will be talking to you about the FanGraphs Franchise Player Draft that took place about a week or so ago and was a direct mirroring of the ESPN Franchise Player Draft that was done on ESPN about a week before that. Let me lay a little bit of groundwork here before we get too far into this. Every player that you draft, you have the rights to 10 years of their production. It's expected contribution into the future. We're not talking about anything in terms of previous performance or anything of that nature. And there's no contract, so we don't have to take like an Alex Rodriguez or Matt Kemp kind of contract into consideration when we think about the player that we want to select. So I will run down the first 15 picks, and then next week we'll go over the next 15 as well as some notable omissions that some of my colleagues and I may have come up with on FanGraphs. So let's jump right into it and look at the number one pick. Mike Exisa held the first overall pick. He took Matt Kemp. Kemp, who has been injured of late, has been an absolute monster over in the National League, basically been the Josh Hamilton version of the National League. Take a look at this. A 6.09 weighted on-base average against left-handed pitchers. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. He is a little bit hurt, but yeah, like I said, been a monster, slugging like 700 this year, doing a great job. Second, you have Dan Wade selecting the Phenom, the 19-year-old Phenom in the nation's capital, Bryce Harper. And you've got a guy at age 19 that has just under a 400 weighted on-base average. I mean, you can't overstate what the young man is doing so far, playing good defense, showing a rocket of an arm, and basically carrying a Washington Nationals team that's pitching the heck out of the ball, but is still looking to get a little extra hitting. So he's certainly up to stay, and he's been just doing a terrific job. Pick 3, Eric Hamann from D-Rays Bay and FanGraphs took Troy Tulowitzki from the Colorado Rockies. You got another guy that's been injured, but by and large is a superstar. Kind of hard to look past shortstop when you're looking at a guy that you want to lock down, considering how tough it is to find a shortstop that you're going to keep in that position for years to come. Tulo's been pretty steady this year, maybe not as good as he's been in the past maybe 3 to 4 years, but there's also some rumors that he's not clutch, anything of that nature. But basically, when you've got the third overall pick and a guy that's Tulowitzki's age, late 20s, mid to late 20s, you got to really look in that direction for a guy to lock down that shortstop spot. At pick 4, Wendy Thurm, San Francisco Giants fan and recent addition to the FanGraphs staff, took Mike Trout, the nice up-and-coming outfielder for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And presently, it's really hard to say for sure who's been better, if Harper or Trout has been better. Both have been just absolutely phenomenal in pushing their way up to the big leagues at the tender age of 19 and 20, respectively. You're looking at a guy in Trout that, if not for Josh Hamilton, would definitely be throwing his name in the mix as the American League MVP, and basically rendering Vernon Wells, Torrey Hunter, and all those guys obsolete out there on the West Coast in the Orange County there. Moving on to pick number 5, we got Paul Swiden, Colorado native. He took Evan Longoria, kind of continuing the streak here of guys who have struggled with injuries this year. Longoria, still in his mid-20s, absolutely elite production from third base, and a guy that I thought maybe would have had a chance to threaten for a 10-win season coming off a year where he struggled with balls in play and all that kind of stuff. But absolute monster, should be coming back for Tampa Bay pretty soon here. I think he's going out on a rehab stint here in the next couple days, so keep an eye on him. He would be an absolutely great cornerstone pick. And so we're through 5 picks, and so far I'm pretty much in agreement with what everybody's done so far. We get to pick 6, Steve Selinsky, another Tampa Bay Rays fan, and he takes Ryan Braun. Braun definitely came under fire a little bit in the offseason, NL MVP, steroids controversy, or the failed drug test, if you will. But Braun's done his part this year to really silence the doubters. Had a really good year so far. Maybe not slugging quite as good as he did last year, but he's also playing improved defense. So doing a good job out there in Milwaukee. It's a team that my Twins here are going to see here coming up this weekend. Pick number 7, Justin Upton. That's Chris Swick making that pick. A little rhyme there, I guess. And Upton, still young guy, but struggling a little bit in Arizona this year. Still, for a guy that's in his young, early 20s still, pretty hard to argue against a guy that you're going to build around in a corner spot, can play a little defense, has a really good arm. I think that's a great pick right there. And then the first pitcher comes off the board at number 8, Clayton Kershaw. Jim Breen, a Minneapolis here native, but a Milwaukee Brewer guy at heart, takes Clayton Kershaw. Hard to take any pitcher before Kershaw when you consider the durability of Kershaw throwing 200 innings for multiple innings, and seems to be on pace to do that again this year. Does a good job mixing it up, throws hard, gets the strikeouts, although he's getting a bit fewer strikeouts this year than in years past, still really racking them up above 8.0 for per 9 innings so far this year, so still getting a respectable level of strikeouts. Then we come to pick number 9. That was my choice, and I agonized between two different players, Andrew McCutchen, Giancarlo Stanton, and I went back and forth between those two. Ultimately, what swayed it for me was age. McCutchen is 3 years older than Stanton. So even though McCutchen plays center field, not particularly well, but he does play center field, I took Stanton because he's got arguably the best power tool in the entire game. He'll be 22 all season long, and I mean, what more can you ask for? You got a guy that plays a capable right field, he's a dynamic talent, and he's 22 years old. Slam dunk pick for me. So he's also cutting his strikeouts, which is another big thing for a slugger when you think of a guy that muscles up the ball like that. When he's cutting his strikeouts by 5% every year for the last 3 seasons, he's really becoming a really big force down there in Miami. So since I didn't take McCutchen, Alex Remington, who picked 10th, did. And basically McCutchen's having his best all-around season yet. He's probably one of the best all-around players in the major leagues, and a great value pick no matter where you take him in this first round here. But you're looking at a guy who's improved his slugging percentage by 100 points last year. And last year he was the kind of guy that you would take here, 10th, 12th pick. So you got a dynamic all-around talent, pretty decent center fielder, maybe not as good as the hype would state, but a pretty good center fielder all around and a great pick. So now we got the first 10 picks kind of laid out here, and I pretty much agree with all of them. Let's move on to a pick that I'm not entirely sure that I agree with, and that's Mike Newman, Prospect Guru. Scouting the Sally was his former website. He takes Elvis Andrus of the Texas Rangers at number 11. And I like Andrus' bat, and it's important to note he's still only 23 for just about the entire season. But I don't know. I mean, I think I need a little more offense. He's got a 775-ish OPS right now. Great defensive shortstop, and still young. I don't know. I might have taken a guy like Joey Votto, maybe Hanley Ramirez. It's really hard to say. But, you know, he knows better than I do, so it's a good pick, and I didn't have to agonize over at 11 because I'd already made my pick at 9. So, moving on, we get to Steven Strasburg as Mike Petrillo, Dodger fan that writes for Rotographs, takes Strasburg. Strasburg's the kind of guy that if you could be guaranteed health, he might have been going in the first 3 to 5 picks. Even with the general feeling that pitchers are too volatile or injury-prone, Strasburg's the kind of talent. I mean, he's fanning almost 12 guys per 9 innings this year, ratcheting up the strikeouts, pitching on a team that has a great staff all around. I mean, pitching has just been contagious over there in Washington, as guys like Gio Gonzalez, Edwin Jackson, and all those guys are just pitching absolutely dynamite over there. So the Strasburg pick, a little bit worrisome because of how he's got the injury history. Still only thrown like 150, 160 big league innings, but they're about as dominant as the first 150, 160 innings of any big leaguer that we've seen in the modern era. So if you feel confident that Tommy John surgery is as good as it's all cracked up to be, and that Strasburg's mechanics will lend for him to have a long, successful, and durable career, that's an absolutely phenomenal pick there at number 12. So we move on to 13, and that's Carson Sestouli, the legendary Carson Sestouli picking, and he takes Joey Votto. And you kind of see the concept of a franchise draft in the way that the Reds signed and hung on to Votto, as they signed him to a 10-year extension in the offseason, or rather maybe early in the season. But you got Votto as a guy who's got an 1,100 OPS, almost a 200 OPS plus, courtesy of Baseball Reference, and he's got 26 doubles so far. I mean, that puts him on pace for something like 70 doubles. That's absolutely absurd. He could have 100 extra base hits this year. And I don't care if he hits on the moon, 100 extra base hits. That's absolutely phenomenal, and he's throwing his name in the ring for another MVP. So I really love that pick. I know he doesn't play a corner, and I know he's not particularly young. He's not old by any means. But I think that's an absolutely great pick by Sestouli there. So let's move on to number 14. We got Carlos Gonzalez of the Colorado Rockies. That's J.D. Sussman, a new addition to our Rotograph staff over at FanGraphs. With Gonzalez, we got another young, dynamic player, got some good power, among the league leaders in home runs right now in the National League. Have seen some issues with the home-away splits, but I'm not entirely worried that he's going to have any problem becoming a superstar as he continues to mature, if he isn't a superstar already. So let's round out the top 15 here with David Weir's pick. He takes Jay Bruce, that's teammate of Joey Votto, and keeps it in the National League Central and in Great American Ballpark for that matter. And Jay Bruce, I like Jay Bruce. I don't love Jay Bruce. I would love Jay Bruce if he played center field. As a right fielder, you got a guy that's hitting 260, sub 330 on base percentage, still 25 years old, so he's got plenty of time to still come around, but he's still striking out a little bit. You still got a guy that you just can't lean on. I still feel like there's enough guys like a Miguel Cabrera, a Prince Fielder, guys you can lean on and build on, because those first 5 years are going to be way more important than your next 5. So that's the first 15. Next week, join me on either Wednesday or Thursday, still don't have that ironed out yet, and we'll talk a little bit about the remaining 15, and then I'll also go over some notable omissions, and there's going to be some that you're going to want to hear about, because as we go through 16 through 30, there are going to be some picks that you may scratch your head about, because even though at FanGraphs we are baseball experts, or at least we pretend to be, and in most instances are, we sometimes get the best of ourselves picking prospects over proven players. So with that cliffhanger in mind, be sure to check in next week, and I will go over that list with you. Thanks, and have a great day.